This is the theme of Setback in Blood Out, applying the 7 stages of setback, and conclusion, select frames. So let's recap Michael's setback. So how the writer-director creates setbacks for Michael's character. So there is an accumulation of Michael's setbacks. One of those setbacks is his career takes a professional hit. So I think in some ways that he is kind of guided by this idea of trying to repair what broke in a previous instance, even through maybe trying to be there for his brother. So that death of a child due to the meth lab operation, and also due to sort of like an incompetence on his part in not securing the area. That this is all of us in a big van with guns and gear and headgear and everything going into a neighborhood, and we all understand that neighborhoods have kids. And so to not have someone, even a female officer, secure the area, move the children, is something that reflects a little bit of his lack of skill development in this area. So his career takes a professional hit. This could be a motivator for why he makes the decisions that he makes throughout the rest of the film. So his brother is killed and he is unable to help him. So remember, David came to him for help, and he was unable to help him, and that is a family, sibling setback, right? Personal to him. Then he's unable to get support from a fellow officer. That Detective Hardwick is not his direct fellow officer, but he's an officer, right? And so when he goes to try to get information about the status of his brother's death, he's blocked, right? So that's a setback for him, which may also contribute to that becoming a motivator for why he makes the decisions he makes. Then he chooses to go undercover solo without help. So he's it's not clear in the beginning if he's pursuing a vigilante justice objective, but it becomes that probably throughout the rest of the film when two people tell him, Billy and Anya, that this is bigger than you, and that you can't go on some vigilante justice type of goal. And so he's unable to get support from that fellow officer, and then chooses to go undercover. And then he becomes a criminal and engages in criminal activity. So as much as he is a cop who took an oath to protect and serve, he becomes a criminal to engage in criminal activity. Of course, that's fighting with the Indigo, surrounding himself with drug activities, fighting in other ways, going into crossing territory. So he's crossing from law enforcement into drug activity, and to environments where people are breaking the law, and he does it with such ease. Then he displays cop-like tendencies to Anya, which creates a setback for him, because then she's going to now watch him to see who he is and why he's there. Then he reveals to Gloria his connection to David. So that means he's uncovering himself. He's supposed to be undercover, and he's uncovering himself. And so that is a setback in and of itself, because how can you trust Gloria? You can't really trust her. Michael lowers his defenses, which results in Anya taking his DNA while he is asleep. So sure, you're going to want a connection with someone, but if you're there to solve a particular problem that you created, and your problem is essentially, I need to go undercover to find out who killed my brother. And so that automatically creates a setback for yourself, because now you have to become something that you're not. And so he lowers his defenses in engaging with Anya, which results in him taking his DNA, and then results, of course, in him being revealed that he is actually a cop. So he has a crossroads moment coupled with a moral imperative. So remember, it's Billy first who tells him that this is bigger than you, and that a cop with a badge is justice served, but without a badge, it's murder. And so that's the moral imperative from Billy, his partner, that pushes the narrative with urgency for him to make a decision, get out of this setback, and pursue a solution that's going to net him a better result. And then he struggles with Hector Gonzalez, and all that is that he struggles with not knowing his enemy. The enemies that he had fought prior to Hector Gonzalez, they were easy enemies. So he didn't necessarily need to train for that. He could tap into the skill set he already had. But he didn't know Hector Gonzalez. Sure, he won the fight. He won the blood match, but it could have been his death at the same time. And so he didn't know. He knew the drug enterprise. He knew the hierarchy. He knew that he needed to be invited. And there's a number of things that he knew. He knew language. He knew he needed to tat up. It's a number of things that he knew, but he didn't know Hector Gonzalez. And that's important because that's an enemy that can take you out if you don't know. And that could be, Hector Gonzalez could be a person who represents the lack of knowledge in an area that you should be aware of. He could be the biggest threat to you. You can look at Hector Gonzalez in a number of ways. So these are Michael's setbacks. There could be more, but these are the ones I wanted to focus on for now. So the seven stages of setback, the definitions and what the stages suggest for Michael's acting and the writer-director strategy. So remember, Michael is masquerading as a criminal. That means he's acting in the same way that Anya is masquerading as a criminal, and she's acting as an undercover federal agent. So what are the seven stages of setback? What are the definitions, and how do these seven stages, what they suggest for Michael's acting and the writer-director strategies? So recap the seven stages of setback. So missed opportunity, punishment, pain, correction, recovery, restoration, and advance. These are the stages that I came up with for my book, Overcoming Setback, 5 Keys for Entering, Exiting, Correction, which will be available August 2021. And so missed opportunity is always connected to the fact that you missed an instruction or you missed a door. And you can always feel when you have missed something. So then punishment follows because you decided to disobey an instruction or dishonor someone who was trying to guide you down the right path. And then you feel the pain of that decision. And then you have to go through your correction process. The recovery from correction could always take longer because it requires you to recover from bad thinking. And then restoration always requires that you have a mentor. And then advance is that continuous and forward movement. So these are the 7 stages of setback that we're going to go over. And that we're going to answer a few questions. And then that's going to be the end of the film analysis. So missed opportunity. To miss something is to fail to notice, hear, or understand something that was crucial for you to know. What was Michael's missed opportunity, and how did the writer-director create missed opportunities for Michael and any other character? So when you think about Michael missed opportunity, it looks like he is proactive in trying to figure out what it is that happened to his brother, the status of the murder investigation, and how that would impact any decision that he's going to make afterwards. But I feel like his missed opportunity, even though he did his due diligence in trying to figure out what went wrong and visiting the precinct and speaking with Detective Hardwick, I feel like he did do some due diligence. There was some patience on his part. But his missed opportunity with regard to him having to become a criminal was simply that he didn't have to go undercover to find out who his brother's murderer was. His missed opportunity was what he should have done with Anya, what Anya was doing: gather evidence, build a database, right? And investigate what's really going on. The obvious missed opportunity, of course, is when he didn't secure the scene, or I don't know if that's the right language. Right when the meth lab operation, he didn't assign an officer to take care of the kids in the neighborhood. Right, that is, of course, a missed opportunity. You have a missed opportunity to push for David to come to his house immediately, especially considering that David is in a gang and that anybody could be watching David, right? And so his missed opportunity to me is just, instead of having to become a criminal and engage in criminal activity, he could have done it a lot differently. Now, of course, if you're going to put a cop on the situation, people are going to know that you are a cop, and so they're not going to be um, come forward with information. But I just don't necessarily think he had to become a criminal in order to understand the criminal enterprise. It seemed like he already had a good knowledge base as a cop about the drug dealing and criminal enterprise. And then how did the writer director create missed opportunities for Michael and any other character? So, of course, Gloria's missed opportunity is just using language and her actions to avoid help and avoid change. Gloria really wants to stay in her setback, and if it was up to her, she would. It's convenient for her, and so she doesn't see the need to change. So her setback is just continually um, pushing her brother away, possibly not wanting to accept change without somebody having to swoop in and come in and tell her different. It took her having to be kidnapped and crashing in a car for her to now accept change, when change and help were always available for her. All she had to do was ask. So I feel like with Gloria, that's her missed opportunity. Billy, I don't see Billy needed to remain clean in the situation, as Michael suggested. So I don't see him having a missed opportunity. He sort of fulfilled his role as the ultimate moral imperative person, telling him you need to make a choice, right? Um, Anthony's role, his missed opportunity is essentially not really listening to his sister. He's kind of dull in his senses about his sister. He doesn't hear her plight. She's really talking about something else. Even though she's talking about, I want drugs and I'll go do some man to get money or whatever. She's really not talking about that. She's talking about she needs a big brother, that she needs someone to talk to about the fact that she just lost her boyfriend to a murder, right? And he can't be that for her. He has to put so much distance between her and him because he was there at the killing. So if he talks too much, if he allows her to talk about David too much, he's going to reveal his own complicity. And so I think the writer director purposely creates a distance between Gloria and her brother Anthony on on purpose, like a very strategic thing, so that he keeps it quiet that he was there at the killing. Anya's missed opportunity is was I'm not sure she has a true missed opportunity um, in terms of ignoring something. I think she goes there to do exactly what she had planned to do, was to masquerade as a person in that environment to gather evidence. She comes in very strategic. She comes in purposeful. She knows she's an undercover agent, and she's likely told her boss that she's an undercover agent. And so she comes in with the goal of inputting names, gathering, inputting names in a database, taking, DNA and building up a record. So I don't see her, she's doing what Michael should have done If he had had the same, they could still become criminals, right, in a sense, and act out their parts. But had he, she was much more responsible than Michael. Michael came in with a different agenda, and so it affected how he dealt with everyone. Still, no one ever perceived him to be or suspected that he was a cop. But I feel like Michael should have done what Anya did. The purpose of punishment is to address negative and or bad behavior. To punish is to inflict a penalty, discipline, and correction. What was Michael's punishment? How did the writer-director punish secondary characters? And then what was the rationales? So Michael, when you think about Michael in the beginning, when he's conducting the operation for the meth lab, and he messes up and contributes to the killing of that young girl, he's not punished after that. He's not placed on desk duty. He is not written up. He's not even expected to go and speak with the captain about the situation. There is no investigation. The captain, all he basically says is that sometimes there is collateral damage, and Michael is concerned about the young girl and asks if she makes it, but there isn't anything beyond that. I don't remember any sort of punishment beyond that. So if you look at that first experience we have with Michael and him leading parts of the meth lab operation in a good way, and then some part of it that he doesn't, we should see a punishment, but we don't see a punishment. When David comes to see him, and David is appealing to Michael to help him, and there isn't anything, Michael is willing to help him after he feels convinced that David is willing to change. He's ready to change. You might say that when David is killed, that in choosing to become a criminal, he's self-punishing, even though his goal is to try to figure out who was the one responsible for killing his brother. But he might feel like he's going to become a criminal in order to do that, right? That might be some sort of form of self-punishment. There's a false punishment, however, when he crosses territory and goes into the other precinct where Detective Hardwick is, and they sort of attack him, and then Detective Hardwick, well, we don't know for certain, but we just know that he's handcuffed to the bottom of the sink. And so they are basically treating him like a criminal, handcuffing him for just coming in and asking about the status of his brother's murder. And so that might work like a punishment in a sense, that who are you to cross territories and come over here and try to tell us what to do and tell us to do our job, because Michael is coming in with some sort of moral imperative, even at the beginning of the movie. Do your job, right? And so they kind of punish him. It's a false punishment in the sense that they didn't really have the right to punish him. He has every right to ask questions about his brother's murder status. And now he may be too bold and aggressive in the way that he's coming over into the other territory, but he did make a point of calling and trying to set up some kind of opportunity to discuss it, and Detective Hardwick just refused to answer his calls. So him choosing to become a criminal in order to find out what's going on with the brother could be his way of self-punishing, meaning that he should have had a sense of urgency about his brother, saying he wanted to get out, and that because he is part of a gang and drug dealing, and because he is a cop himself, Michael is a cop, it is really, obvious that someone might get wind to the idea, that David wants to leave, or someone might get wind to the idea that David is connected to a cop. And we know that to be true because Styx was sitting in a car watching them. So how did Styx know to watch David? So I didn't think about that until right now, that there must have been some kind of inclination in the whole system to begin watching David, because all of a sudden he's showing up in the car, hiding and looking at or watching David and his brother have a conversation, right? So that could be Michael's punishment there. How did the writer-director punish secondary characters and rationales? So well, we know why David is punished, because David really didn't know the system under which he was serving, right? He wanted to get out, and so the best punishment, the appropriate punishment for anyone who wants to get out is blood out. You cannot walk away. There's no sense in walking away. The rationale for that is kind of interesting. I'm not quite sure there is a clear rationale, but the rationale for Zed in killing David is, has David talked to anyone? Even if he's not a snitch, he has a brother who is a cop, and that he could eventually snitch to his brother about the operation. So his rationale, you just have to kill the enemy, because you have to shut it down before it becomes anything else. So I think killing David early sets a tone for the film, and it gives Michael a motivation to seek out some sort of justice for his brother, even if he's not using the term justice, and even if it looks like he's pursuing a vigilante justice. It's something to motivate him to figure out what's going on. And so that's why he spends a lot of time on the phone. That's why he crosses territories. He puts on his uniform and he goes to the other side and asks them what's going on. And so it is his way of trying to figure out things. So other punishment, other characters receive some form of punishment. The Indigo crew, the fact that they are not as skilled as they seem to try to be ego-wise. If you're going to stand guard of a community as a drug dealer, you definitely need to be able to handle yourself. They couldn't handle themselves. It took one person to knock all four men out. So that was maybe a way to punish them. When you see Michael taking a bat to the one of the guys, it's no different than a father taking a belt to a child, right? And so the punishment could have been, you're too young to worry about these things, right? That's why he said, so if you're so concerned about the community, you got all the hookers and the drunks around the community, maybe that's something that you should clean up. And so in Michael's duty to be moral in that instance, he's basically sort of disciplining them, telling them that they need to do better in a strange sense. Punishment for Anthony. Anthony loses his friend. He loses his partner, David. And it's funny that it's not Anthony who recognizes the fact that David has a brother who is a cop. So we don't see Anthony sitting out there in the car with Styx watching David talk to his brother. And maybe that is the writer-director's strategy, so that Michael is not revealed as a cop to Anthony, and Anthony is not revealed as the person who was there at the murder of David. So who else is punished? Not many people are punished other than the fights that happen. I will say that Michael is kind of punished at the blood match, for not really knowing his enemy. He takes a good beating before he ends up, taking the guy down and the guy having to tap out. But he takes a good beating for a while before that actually happens. So that could be a form of punishment. But the writer director structuring how punishment is doled out is definitely interesting, because there is an absence of punishment in Michael at the very beginning, and so he's not really punished throughout the rest of the movie, as if he can move along without any real um, sort of discipline, right? And that could be like a sign of a child who continues to move about without any real discipline, but then they come to the end of their road and they are forced to be disciplined. So that situation with Hector Gonzalez at the blood match, that disciplined him. He will be sure to pay attention to that kind of fighting skill necessary for anything else he's going to get into. So those are some of the punishments I think that are kind of interesting, because there's, in many ways, there's absence of punishment until everything comes to a head at the blood match. So the pain reminds you that you have done something wrong, you have made the wrong move, and you need to undergo a process to let the pain ride itself out until the fever breaks. What was Michael's pain? How did the writer, director film and or interpret pain? Through the lens, through the perceptions of characters. So what I feel Michael did wrong, again, it begins at the very beginning of the movie, where he does not assign an officer to clear the area so that the men can come out of the truck and storm the meth lab. So the pain is the pain of having to hold the hand of a young girl who was hit by a bullet intended for someone else, hold her hand and feel the limpness of her arm. And you see at the end of the film in the frame where he's holding the hand of Gloria, and so he doesn't want to feel that type of pain ever again. That's why he keeps pushing the issue. Come live with me. We'll take care of you. We'll get you all together. No drugs, no drink, no drugs or any type of gang activity, because he doesn't want to feel that pain again. He doesn't go through a real process of pain throughout the movie. We don't really see him crying. We don't see him off to himself, really thinking and contemplating the pain felt from that initial encounter, or the pain felt from his brother. Even when he visits the crime scene, he's not crying. He's pausing, but he's really assessing the scene as if it is his crime scene, and as if the man on the ground is not his brother. So his pain really doesn't ride itself out. There are too many distractions. The idea of becoming a criminal, and then the fighting, the proving, the testing, any other type of criminal based activity, the discussions, the almost drive by that hits them, and then the blood match at the end. And he doesn't have time. He doesn't give himself time to process his pain over the death of his brother. And maybe, we don't know how long there has been sort of conflict with his brother, but sometimes you do get tired of trying to tell somebody the same thing over and over and over again, to the point that you're just kind of dulled in your senses about it. If they come around, they come around. If they don't, they don't. I do think as a character that he wishes he might have stayed with the idea of trying to get him to come home with him immediately, maybe leaving work himself and taking him home with him, but then that might have increased the threat levels towards him. So I think that was his pain, in the sense that his pain really wasn't felt pain. He didn't have time to process his pain. For the let's look at Gloria. Gloria is in pain because the person she's ever loved is dead, right? And so now she is forced to be a single individual as a single mother, without having to live with her boyfriend who is dead. I also think there's a pain between her and her brother, meaning that there's some kind of distance, emotional distancing with them. It might have started from childhood. It might have started from a death in their family. But there is definitely some kind of pain going on in between them that they won't talk about. Uh, that's in contrast to David and Michael, discussing the pain in terms of their, not necessarily the full thing, but in terms of their childhood and how they lost their mother. And then you do see Michael and Anthony right before the drive-by comes along, them kind of discussing the pain of having a sibling who is kind of, trouble, Anthony with Gloria, and then having a sibling who died, um, gang banging. So that's Michael talking about David. He purposely omits the idea that David really died at the hands of someone else, not necessarily gang banging. Gang banging would suggest that he was out there shooting with opposing gangs, enemy gangs, and he got shot and then he died. Now, this was a complete different type of situation. It was a murder. And so he sort of omits that pain. And it could be because, in thinking about the writer director, it could be because Michael doesn't want to let on too much about what he knows in terms of how Michael died, because then if he lets on too much, especially that knowledge, it's going to reveal much more to Anthony that Michael is not quite as who he seems to be. And so I think the writer director holds Michael back in a lot of areas so that he doesn't reveal too much. Keep the cover, but he doesn't reveal. So he holds back Michael's pain, because when you are in pain, like Gloria, you want to speak it out, even if it's bad behavior. Like she throws up the finger and everything. Even if it's bad, you want to speak it out. And so Anthony's, dealings with Gloria, I'm not going to help you kill yourself, right? And then I'm not quite sure you have a lot of pain from the other perceptions of characters, because they're all in it for whatever it is that they're going to be in it for. But you wonder how much Squat has pain in terms of perceiving David as a snitch. And there is supposed to be some sort of loyalty within these environments. There should be something that basically said we're not going to tell off on each other, and when we do, we feel the pain of disloyalty. So we could make that point. But mainly I think Michael is really not feeling his pain. He doesn't have time to feel his pain. But I think at the end of the movie, when he now has to begin taking care of Gloria, that pain is going to come through. The frustration is going to come through, and it might actually scare him. So correction, the purpose of correction is to get you back on the original path set for you, or you set for yourself. Correction is defined as the returning of something to its former place or condition. So how was Michael corrected? How did the writer-director use Billy and Anya to correct Michael? Was there an expectation that all characters needed or would be corrected or get the opportunity to be corrected? And then, was correction important in the film? So Michael was essentially corrected. That question, along with the Billy and Anya reference. Essentially, Michael was corrected when they both said, this is bigger than you. And Billy in particular saying that with a badge, justice served. So any action that you commit with the badge is justice served. But with the badge is murder. And so if you don't want to be equated to Zed killing your brother as murderous, then you need to look at this crossroad moment and make better choices. And then when Anya comes along and reveals and uncovers herself, she said, this is bigger than you, and you can't go about this thing as a way of vigilante justice. So his thinking is corrected. His thinking is corrected, which then pushes an urgency in the film to finish this thing clean, right? Remember when Michael tells Billy, who wants to help Michael, no, we got to keep this clean. But once Billy and Anya both present this crossroad moment to him, he's now wanting to end his journey clean. Even if he doesn't say as much, we just have to assume that. Was there an expectation that all characters needed or would be corrected or get the opportunity to be corrected? The only characters I would think in terms of the need to be corrected would be Anthony, Gloria, the Indigo crew, any of the other gang members. I think that the Indigo crew, the fact that they can't defend their own territory is a thinking that they need to consider about. They may need to abandon their efforts at being gang folks and go on and do something better, because they can't even defend their own territory. That should be something that comes to mind. One man took out 4 people, right? Anthony, I think Anthony is just on this road to being corrected, because he has a problem with the way that Zed and Elias think about things, and how they have to run the world, and the world is mine, in the statement of Nino Brown. And so something about that, them thinking that they are bigger than the set, they're bigger than the group, which is contrast to what Billy and Anya say, that you are not bigger than the group. Something about that, Anthony really has a problem with one man thinking that he can run everything, and that I guess we're not all in this together after all. And so his face, his facial expressions, his demeanor, his disposition, they're all ready to be corrected, I feel. His thinking about the matter. This statement about I'm gonna go ghost, I have no idea what that means in terms of what happens to Anthony. But if he's going ghost, that means he's abandoning his sister, because we don't see him at the end with the sister. We don't even see him chasing the sister, or even trying to find out, because he said, remember that I can't find my sister. And so, and in the same breath, he said, I'm going to go ghost. So we don't know. Maybe the going ghost is he's made a decision that he's no longer going to do this thing anymore. And it's possible in a way, because Zed is going to be killed, and Elias is going to be arrested by Billy. So we don't know if he's going to be corrected. What is his name? Gloria is corrected, or she's going to be corrected, but it took all the way to the end of the film for her to sort of be corrected in her thinking. In some ways, she pulls at people, suggesting that she needs them, but then when they offer help, she pushes people back, right? This pull push strategy that she has. But like I said, it takes her being kidnapped and crashed in a car, that car flipping over, and her being unconscious, for her to now make a decision, I'm going to have to receive help. And so correction was important in the film, because you cannot continue to go down a certain path thinking that it's going to net you the best results. The film corrects Elias in his thinking when he thinks he is much bigger than the set, because Billy ends up arresting him. And so that is sort of like inherent correction. So he's not going to be able to go through the rest of the stages of Setback as a free man, though. He's going to be corrected, and so then he's going to have to go through what he's going to go through and process out of correction, all the way into other areas of the stages of Setback while he's actually in prison. So yes, correction was important in the film. To recover is to return to a state of health, mind, and strength. Without soundness of mind, it would be difficult to accomplish or achieve anything. How did Michael recover? Did the writer-director permit recovery for any other character? And so Michael, I do believe he recovers, because if he was out for if he didn't change his mind about vigilante justice, then he would have picked up a gun and shot Zed. He would have immediately, he had access to Zed. I'm quite sure he had a gun somewhere, and he could have picked up a gun and shot Zed. But he was willing to appeal to Zed, calling him a coward when he was holding the gun near Gloria's belly, and he was willing to just kind of process through trying to get him to stop. Then, of course, there's commotion, and then Zed ends up kidnapping Gloria and taking her into the car. So Michael does recover, because if Michael didn't recover, we would have seen Michael shoot Zed and not Anya shoot Zed. And then, does the writer-director permit recovery for any other character? In some ways, Anya is permitted recovery when she uncovers herself, meaning that she felt maybe a little bit of vulnerability when she saw Michael take over the Indigo safe house, right? She wondered who he was, and then that was kind of like a setback for her, because she thought that she had this all under her control because she's an undercover federal agent. But then when she takes his DNA, she sort of kind of helps herself understand what the issue is, right? She gains in knowledge. Okay, he's not just any old body. He is a detective, right? And then when she goes to him and uncovers and tells him that she knows who he is, that sort of eases her anxiety. And then she basically pushes for the idea that, please don't mess this up. This is something that we've been doing for a long time. We're gathering evidence, and this is not, bigger than you. You're not bigger than this, right? And so it is her way of recovering control. I think that's the best way to say it. That it's her way of recovering control, because if she didn't reveal herself to Michael and then also kind of hold him back from doing something that could be very dangerous and hurt the operation, then that would have left her completely at a failure to manage the operation. So she recovers in that way. And then Gloria is going to recover. It's obvious. Elias is not going to recover. We don't know where Anthony is, and we don't know where the other characters are. So Michael does recover, and Anya recovers as well. Restoration requires mentorship, and mentorship is predicated on learning from someone who has walked out the process. So how was Michael restored? How did the writer-director use mentoring? To whom did the writer-director target for mentoring? So, of course, Gloria is the best opportunity to think about mentoring. I'm not quite sure she's all that receptive, but in some cases, she has no other choice. Her brother is gone, and so Michael is restored in a sense that Billy and Anya basically tell him the right way to do things, right? I would say Anya actually is the one who does the restoring, because she's telling him that the right way to do this is not some undercover solo vigilante operation. The right way to do this is what I'm doing, whereas I go in undercover, I gather evidence, I input it into the database, I collect DNA. That's actually the right way to do things, versus Michael deciding that he's going to go to the tattoo shop, become a criminal, and then begin the process of proving himself. That was really a waste of time. That if he had gotten permission and authority to go undercover, that would have been a much better operation, and he would have been accountable. So it is Anya who makes him accountable. Billy starts off the process about with a badge, justice served, and without a badge is murder. So he starts the process. He pricks at his heart. but it's Anya who really restores him, mentors him, in a sense that she's showing him the right way to do it, and that when he left Detective Hardwick, he shouldn't have left in anger to the point that he's going to become a criminal. He should have gone back to his office and figured out a better strategy for how to deal with the murder status of his brother and the operation that he was connected to. So that's how I feel like the writer-director used mentoring to restore Michael's understanding about how to do things the right way. Because he could have gotten killed, he could have gotten other people killed. And so Anya, the writer-director puts Anya times Anya at the right time, in having her visit the his apartment. I mean his place, to talk to him. And so, to whom did the writer-director target for mentoring? Of course, it's Anya to Michael. You can also say that Michael is targeting. You could also say that Michael is targeting his own brother for mentorship. The strange thing is, Michael's discussion with the Indigo crew is some form of mentoring, right? The writer-director is using Michael to better sort of educate the Indigo group. So you are guarding your neighborhood, right, as an Indigo crew gang, but you have all these drunks and hookers on the street. Why shouldn't you want to clean that up if you are guarding, right? So in some strange way, even though he ends up fighting them, right before that, there is this discussion that is kind of borderline mentoring. It's a weird way to say it like that. But remember, Michael is operating in this sort of moral imperative, right? This moral compass, even though he is dressed in the garb of a criminal. So that's how I think that the writer-director uses mentoring, using Anya to sort of mentor Michael towards restoration in his thinking about how to handle problems. If he continues to handle problems in this way by becoming a criminal and engaging in criminal activity, he's going to end up dead himself. And then, of course, the writer-director using Michael to kind of target mentoring towards those four Indigo guys to think better about their situation. So to advance is to move forward in a purposeful way and make or cause progress. Advancing is a forward and continuous movement. So how did Michael advance? And did the writer-director advance any other character, and how? So Michael does advance in the sense that once he gets the mentoring from Anya, and as well as Billy, he no longer pursues his vigilante justice. Now, he had to go through Hector Gonzalez in order to get on the other side of his situation. So once the bloodbath with Hector Gonzalez is kind of like the melee, the way to resolve the conflicts within himself, the way to resolve the conflicts and dealing with this sort of drug dealing culture, gang banging culture, right? And so he does advance in his understanding. Now, advancing is a forward and continuous movement, so he is going to have to make sure that he stays the course. That's going to happen because now that he's going to bring Gloria into the fold, into his house, into his environment, he's already set to task certain conditions. And she can't gangbang, she can't do drugs, she's just going to have to do right. And that's the thing about some people, they don't want to do right. And did the writer-director advance any other character? Billy was already on the right path. Anya was already on the right path. Anthony is in a emotional turmoil in terms of decisions that he needs to make. We don't see him advancing really. Um, I mean, Zed and Elias kind of advance as a result of um, Michael winning the bloodbath, but then they are set back when Zed is killed and when Elias is arrested and taken to jail. So I think Michael really is the only one who truly advances because he takes to heart what Billy and Anya say. He stops the vigilante justice that he was trying to go after, and he moves forward with more of a moral imperative this time to do better. So I think Michael does advance. It's debatable, but I do think he advances. So, what can we learn from Michael's setbacks and conclusion, and what can we learn from writer director's strategy? So, Michael's setbacks is just always predicated on the idea of learning from your weaknesses before going on to greater battles, and that the setback that began his professional, the setback that began at the beginning of the movie is where he should have learned from his particular weaknesses. And that weakness is there was a weakness in his leadership. He had them all lined up, the police officers, right? He had them lined up. He had the whole thing worked out, how they were going to bomb rush the meth lab, but he forgot, or he just completely ignored the idea that this was a neighborhood and that the neighborhood has kids and kids are going to be playing out there in the front yard. And when they came across the kids, there was nothing in him that suggests, hey, go over there and go get those kids and move them to safety. So I felt like that's really his major setback. The other setback, it could be in him choosing to become a criminal out of some anger of dealing with Detective Hardwick. There was nothing in him prior to that encounter with Detective Hardwick that said, I'm going to become a criminal and go find this thing out. It's only when he was challenged and attacked and disrespected and dishonored by Detective Hardwick and his crew that he chose to then become a criminal. So I think that is a major setback, right? And then the other setback is when he was pushing so hard to try to find out everything and prove himself and become the ideal leader in that environment, to the point that he got so tired and went to sleep. He was out to sex, but he still went to sleep. So that made him vulnerable to the point that Anya was able to take his DNA. What if someone had a gun to his head? So I think those are sort of like the three major setbacks. And then what can we learn from the writer director strategies? Well, the fact that he holds back knowledge using different characters to further the plot is very important. So, for instance, Anthony is pouring one for the homies, and he says his name DJ, but not David. But Michael doesn't push to learn more about the situation. He takes it in stride. He understands that he's talking about someone who was recently, killed or dead or something like that. And he sort of participates with him and calls David a snitch as well. He also holds, the writer director also holds back with Anthony as well, that he doesn't fully tell Gloria that he was there when when David was killed, because then if he did, the writer director allows Anthony to hold his peace and only dole out what is necessary in speaking with Gloria. And what creates a distance between Gloria and Anthony is this idea, I'm not going to help you kill yourself. So that means on some level that Gloria sort of wants to kill herself in a sense, right? And then Anya doesn't really reveal that she was there at the killing of David. And also, she doesn't ask when Michael says, I'm here too because of my brother. Zed killed my brother. Okay, the logical question then would be, okay, so who was your brother? Because remember, she's an undercover agent. She has taken, the DNA of everybody. She knows everybody. So why doesn't she ask that question? It's a logical question. Well, that's the writer-director strategy and having her not ask. She needs to stay focused. If she goes and tells Michael that she was there at the killing of his brother, it's going to change the course of the whole narrative and the urgency that Michael needs to have to go the right path. If she says, I was there and I saw it, it's going to make him even more angry, because then he's going to say, why didn't you stop it? You are an undercover federal agent and you didn't stop it. And so I think those are interesting strategies of the writer-director in holding back certain characters, holding back the dialogue, holding back obvious dialogue that you would have in a real-life situation, to sort of make sure the main character doesn't go off the rails, right? So I think that's interesting. So questions for further discussion. So why should we continue applying the theme of setback as a film analysis tool? What should be the rationale? And then what should be the limits? So I do think we need to apply, especially for cautionary tales, that the theme of setback really explores how a particular character is set back, or how the writer-director sets back that character using particular obstacles. So for instance, with Gloria, she purposely sets back herself. Whenever it looks like her brother might be extending a hand, she throws a monkey wrench into his help. And she said, well, I'd rather do this, right, if you don't give me this, right? She uses emotional manipulation. With Anthony, he pushes her back because he can't completely reveal what he has done, what he has seen, and how it will impact Gloria herself. And then there's setback throughout, the guys who are gang bangers who can't really handle themselves. The fact that one guy comes along and takes them out is a setback, because you're supposed to be so confident in your abilities to take out anybody. That's why you are guarding your neighborhood and running drugs through it, but you can't handle yourself, right? And so that would be an interesting way to look at and apply setback. And then, of course, Michael and his decision making immediately represents a setback. So I think for these cautionary tales, right, I think for any sort of film that looks at the person losing everything, becoming homeless, or struggling with their anger, that's all part of setback. And I think that the theme of setback works in those types of films. The rationale would be to sort of, it should be used because we can look at the characterization of the characters, and we can look at how the writer-director plots and times setback with multiple characters. So I think yes. And then I'm not quite sure there should be limits, but setback may not apply to every context. It may only apply to contexts that are specific to the person experiencing loss, or experiencing a career setback or something like that. So it's hard to say. We would have to apply the theme of setback to certain types of films to see if it actually worked. And that's what I plan to do. All right, like, subscribe, and visit. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell for more discussions. You can visit my YouTube channel for further film analysis. It's Favorites Film Analysis as the title of the channel. You can always send me an email and ask me a question, reginayfavorites@yahoo.com. My Overcoming Setback, 5 Keys for Entering and Exiting Correction book will become available around October 2021. I'm still doing some editing. The book does not focus on film analyses, but I use the content that I created for the book to support my my perceptions of setback used as a theme in select films. So when the book becomes available, I will send out a notification, video, audio. Thank you very much for visiting the channel.